I am Danielle. I'm the creator of Naturally Row Hair Extensions. I have had this podcast going for like 2-3. You have a limp mic.
I do. Realizing that I was becoming so overwhelmed by saying yes all the time. And then I felt like I was having meltdowns, just like a pure overwhelm. And this is when I need to start saying no.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist Podcast. I'm wearing the same thing 2 weeks in a row. Just kidding. We filmed these. I was like, hey, I have clean hair. We need to film multiple episodes because usually I look like a homeless person when I come in and do a podcast.
Well, they're usually on Mondays.
They're usually
the start of the week.
Yeah, and it's like right after team meetings and like a spin class, but you got to pull the mic all the way up where no one will be able to hear no one will be able to hear your smiling face. I thought it made no sense. So I am Danielle. I'm the creator of Naturally Row Hair Extensions. I have had this podcast going for like 2-3. You have a limp mic.
I do. Where does it?
If you just, there we go.
Yeah.
I know. It's so funny. I've been doing these podcasts for so long. I'm like, don't be scared of the mic. You got to get like right in there on the mic. So anyways, but yeah, we've been doing this podcast for a couple of years. And honestly, this has actually really helped me with my communication skills and my teaching skills because I am actually super introverted. I don't know if you are.
I am.
I can tell you kind of are. So this is Rachel. She is our, what did we say? Rachel support? So do you have a better title? Rachel?
Yeah, that's the all-encompassing
So
title.
If you're a student or you have bought any education from me and you call support, this is who you're talking to.
This is the guy.
This is the guy. This is Rachel. But it's so funny because I'm like, I'm doing a podcast with you today, Rachel. And you're like, okay. I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And I'm like, we're going to talk about setting boundaries. Because like, you're the backbone of support. And I'm sure at some level, you have like this logical frame with people that call in to support. But like, you have to stick to boundaries as that person.
And it's hard because I am the type of person that just like wants to give everyone everything. Like, I want to say yes. I want to be able to help as much as I possibly can. But can't always say yes, and you have to know the boundaries, especially for a company, but also for yourself. So
one of the things I love about Rachel is, well, first off, when we hired you, I was like, who is that? Like, it takes me like, I'm such an asshole. It takes me like a couple weeks when somebody keeps showing up. I'm like, oh, are they working here now? That's cool. Like,
well, I also didn't meet you before I got hired.
Yeah, I know. There's a few hires that Katie or Jeff are like, we're hiring this person. And I'm like, okay, I like it. And it was funny. One of the things I liked about you is I was like, I'd come in the office at random times at like 7 p.m. and you were still here. And I was like, I like her. She's still here. Why is she still here? She's still here. So it's interesting too, because like, I feel like setting boundaries can also go with people that are very, I want to say workaholics. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to set boundaries within yourself, right?
Yes.
Like, because it's like, you're not married, you don't have kids, right? So you're like, I have projects, I have deadlines. Why would I not just go work all the time, which I think, again, is an amazing asset to have. And like, there's been times, I swear, if I didn't have kids, I'd be that person.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like,
it's so easy to.
Yeah.
What else am I doing?
Yeah. And I get obsessed with projects. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I gotta finish this project. Like, people are like, why don't you watch Netflix? I'm like, no, I gotta finish. I'm very like.
Or you have Netflix on in the background while you're doing it.
Yes, I like that. So I think it's like important too to set boundaries like in your personal life, right?
Yes. Definitely.
So that you're not like imploding.
Yes. And like for me, weekends, like I'll work, I'll do a few things, more of the things that I like enjoy doing.
Right.
Not like the nitty gritty where I'm like, I need to be in the office and in the right mindset and not like in my own home. But even with like communications, like setting boundaries with that.
Yeah. Cause you're like, I don't want to respond to this person, but
you want to, cause you love your work and whatnot. So like weekends for me, like Katie and I have like this dynamic where I know if she Voxers me, it's no big deal.
Right.
Like, it's not critical or anything. But if she texts me, it's like, okay, let me
911.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of something we have set up I would say, in our team, because I try to give everybody on the team like works overtime. Like, everybody is such hard workers. And so I like to have my weekends, but honestly, I can't ever turn my brain fully off. And so there's times too where we're hitting deadlines where it's like, I can respect your weekend and your boundaries, but also like this should have been handled like
totally
ahead of time. And so we've kind of set that up in our own community where it's like, hey, like if I say Voxer, like just check it on Monday morning, whatever. I'm just going to Voxer it because I'm thinking about it right now.
Exactly.
Or I have this idea or I want to remind you to check this on Monday. But if it's like, shit, this email automation didn't go out and it needs to go out right now, it's like a text. It's usually what I do is like, Rachel, check Voxer. Because I like Voxer because you can 3-speed somebody's message.
Yep. Speed it up real quick.
The other day, I was getting a package from UPS at my house, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Jeff. You know how slow Jeff talks.
Yes.
And I had it on 3x speed. I was like, and the UPS goes, what are you listening to? I was like, oh, it's just in fast motion. And he's like, I couldn't hear anything he was saying. I was like, oh, I could. I was like, just computes real fast.
No, I feel like especially when you like get to know the person, like, I set everybody's to 3 speed.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm like, let's get it.
I can, and I totally know what they're saying. I'm like, okay, I got a 4-minute message in 30 seconds. That was amazing.
It's perfect.
But tell me about, so okay, when you're support Rachel and you get calls that come in, what are some of the craziest calls that you feel like you've had to incorporate setting boundaries?
The hardest ones are usually our students who just want more. We have the virtual experience, there's the pre-training, and it's sometimes hard for them to realize it's pre-training. So it's not indefinite access.
Okay.
And like, while I want to give that to them, and we will extend it a little bit after the class.
Do they complain? Do they call in and complain?
Yes, they do.
They bitch you out?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And it's hard because, of course, I want you to be able to reference it. But at the same time, it wasn't part of your ticket. It was just.
And it's clear, like when they purchase it, it's like, hey, this is not lifetime access.
Yeah.
This is,
but you always like, when you buy something, you hope and you like, you're like, yeah, you have an idea in your head, and then you read everything and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so great, that you forget exactly
the details.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's like something too that we always communicate in the event too. We're like, hey, you guys, your access is like done, so make sure you consume all this content. Make sure you do the pre-training. Like there's like, it's not like it's like the fine print. Like we're telling them the entire time, like during pre-training, like, hey, make sure you do your pre-training. Yeah.
Like we want to set you guys up for success, but we can't want it more than you do.
So Rachel used to be a nanny.
I was for a long time.
So I feel like even though you don't have kids of your own, you had to set boundaries with kids.
Yeah, but setting boundaries with parents.
Teach me about this. I feel like I had like a meltdown with my 15-year-old daughter this morning, and she ended up not going to school, and I was like, I don't know what to do for you.
Yeah, I always did like the younger kids. I like the ones that don't talk back, because those are the easiest. So like once they get to a certain age, I'm all like, oh, so this is rough.
From like 8 months to like 2, you like?
Yeah, that's a perfect age. But it's hard once they like start like having really good points, and you're like, ooh, I
can't argue that.
Yeah. Like Jeff's oldest, he's like so rational, and Jeff's our CFO.
You can almost appreciate the argument.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, I see it, but
also, no, we're not going to do that.
Exactly.
That's funny.
But setting boundaries with parents was like a hard one, because I am such a yes person that anytime they like needed a date night, and I had about like in my busiest season, like 5 families that I regularly babysat each week.
Right.
And saying no to certain things was like hard.
Right.
Like, yes, I want the money. I love the kids.
You know what's so crazy is, I get what you're saying. I think it's hard to say no to the money and you love the kids. So you're like, you find yourself like working your whole even if you have plans. You're like, well, I don't need to go out on a date, and I can make money, so that's fine.
Yeah. So you have to like, I was realizing that I was becoming so overwhelmed by saying yes all the time, and then I felt like I was having meltdowns, like just like of pure overwhelm, and I was like, this is when I need to start saying no.
Yeah, set boundaries for yourself or you'll implode. And I feel like artists, I know you're not an artist, but you're around the artists and you see it. Artists are notorious for saying yes. Like they literally they'll set boundaries and then they break their own rules and boundaries. Yeah. And I'm like, you can't expect clients to respect your boundaries if you don't respect your boundaries. Exactly. If you say you're not working Saturdays anymore, and then a really good client calls you and they're like, I have this event, I really need you to come in on a Saturday, and you cave, then anytime they have anything important going on, you're basically saying like, I'm not important, my client's important, and you're breaking your own boundaries.
Exactly.
Like, and you can't do that. Like at my salon, we're actually only open. Are we open on Monday? No, we're open Tuesday through Friday. That's it. And new clients will tell us all the time. They're like, oh, well, I work during the week. I'm like, yeah, we do too. We're not open on the weekends. And it's not like, I don't feel like I need to explain myself. I'm like, yeah, we're not open. They're like, none of your artists are working on the weekends. I'm like, we're not. And I'm like, and if that's a problem, then it doesn't work. And I think by setting boundaries, you'll actually attract that client that respects you.
Yeah.
Because they're like,
and they won't push.
No.
You know, they're just going to be like, okay, this is what it is. It's like, especially like you don't tell your doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, those don't work for me. I need to come in right now.
Right. And it's so funny. But I think hairstylists, because we're so notorious for working literally Monday through Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Like
holidays,
like anything. Like we can't say no to the money. And the other thing that artists do is they get panicky when they see a gap on their books.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest, whenever I'm teaching new artists, I'm like, okay, first off, when you're offering somebody an appointment, you don't say, I'm wide open. Like, even if you look at your books and you're like, I'm wide open. The other thing you don't do is you don't say, I have a 1, I have a 2, I have a 3. You should offer them what is your next available appointment so that you don't have any gaps.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, no, then I'm going to like miss the opportunity to get some. I'm like, no, you won't. I'm like, you're going to advertise, hey, I have a 3 o'clock spot because you've already filled your 11 and your 1 and the only thing left is a 3. That way you don't have a hole on your books.
Yeah.
And because I have had artists work for me who they tell me like, oh my God, I'm working all the time. I'm working week. And this was back when I first opened my salon. They're like, I'm coming in on Sundays. I'm going to this. And I'm like, okay, let me look at your books. I'm like, you have a gap here, a gap here, a gap here, a gap here, and a gap here. You want to make more money and you have this story that you're overwhelmed and burnt out, but you have like 5 gaps on your book because you have no boundaries. Mm-hmm. And she was like, oh. And even after I showed her that, I was like, you're living in scarcity because you won't you won't dictate like, hey, these are the days I'm working. These are the times I'm working. And you're basically saying like, I don't value me. Like my clients get to dictate my schedule. And that is the fastest way to burn out, truly.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can't let your clients rule your
whole
life.
Yeah, and it's same with even like back when you said like I'd get burnt out because people would say, hey, I need a date night, I need this, and it's like, and I'm sure it wasn't even like necessarily like about the money. A lot of times it was probably just like you couldn't say no.
Yeah,
you're like
they're
not going to ask
to say no,
and it's like I think we get in this fear, and same with artists that if I say no, then they're never going to ask me again. Mm-hmm. And I lost this family that I've been working for and they give me 20 hours a week. I can't, if I say no, then they're never going to hire me again. Yeah. And it's like, okay, I hear you. It's funny. I actually have 3 nannies. And if you're listening to this, you're like, what the hell? You have 3 nannies? Well, I have 5 children living with me right now and and a new puppy. And I also run a large business. So I need 3 nannies, right? Yeah. I have a busy life. And it's funny because I have one nanny who just always wants more hours. And I have to tell her no because I'm like, I don't want burnt out version of you watching my baby. Like, I don't want like, I'm going to have a terminal meltdown any minute watching my baby. That actually makes me super nervous. Like, and I don't ever want to feel, I had my last nanny. I actually got to this point where I was so heavily reliant on her because I only had one nanny. And I was like, oh my God, if she goes out, like I'm screwed, mm-hmm. right?
And then she burns out quicker.
And then she burns out. So I was like, God, nobody's winning here. Like I'm stressed that I don't have a backup plan. She's stressed because she can't ever say no and feels like she always has to work.
Yeah.
And then I feel guilty for asking her to work. And so now because I have like an abundant amount of people, I'm like, I don't feel bad asking you to take a date night. And I'll say if you want the extra hours, if not, I can ask so-and-so. And that way I feel like, okay, but even then there's been times I've had to be like, no, I don't, you don't get more hours because you've worked 80 hours this week and I'm worried about my babies.
Yeah, and you worry about their mental health. You don't want them tanking or anything.
Yeah, I feel like even setting boundaries inside of our team, like I have to be like, okay, you guys, like after a long work week, I'm like, everybody needs to take Monday off, right?
Yeah.
Unless we have like deadlines and stuff, I'm like, we're all in this together, guys.
Yeah.
we're all in this together. But if you guys are that artist and you're kind of like listening to this show, like honestly, like ask yourself, are you setting boundaries and are you sticking to them? And not only like behind the chair, but maybe in your personal life, right?
Because it bleeds.
Everything is all bleeds together. Like I always tell people, I'm like, the reason I have the success I have is honestly like balance. Like if I feel like I'm like burning out or getting overwhelmed in one area, I'm like, hey, I just need like an afternoon for me. I just need like even like a couple hours. Half the time I'm like going to my husband, I'm like, I need to take all the babies out of the house right now for 30 minutes. I just need 30 minutes. You know what's so funny though? I end up like sitting on my phone and working, but it's quiet.
But it's just peaceful, and it's what you want to do.
And I love doing it. So I'm like, I don't care. I can't turn my brain off.
Yeah.
But final thoughts on setting boundaries.
Final thoughts. You just need to do it. Because if you don't set your boundaries, you're going to burn out.
Right.
You're going to be overwhelmed. And then you're just going to like jump off the ledge and not be as productive. So if you give yourself space and time to recharge, then you have your boundary. You know it.
I would say too, even as a business owner, like I have to make my employees often stick to their boundaries because I'm like I shared the situation with my nanny. I'm like, burnt out version of you is not productive. Yeah. I'm like, so if you're listening to this too and you run a salon or a team or whatever it is, like make sure to like check in with them. Like, hey, how is your mental health? Right. Or sometimes I think you'll have people that'll keep like wanting to work. And I'm like, I get that you want to work. I love that quality about you, but I want the best version of Rachel to show up. So, you know, making sure that you kind of enforce those boundaries with people that work on your team is also really going to set everybody up for success. Yeah. So you guys, amazing show. Thanks for, I know you, I'm going to make you come on here more often because I can tell you're a little bit like quiet Rachel, but I need to see the other version of Rachel come out. And like I said, me doing this podcast, I feel like my communication and my teaching has helped a ton. And because you support Rachel,
No.
We're gonna keep bringing you on this podcast and see what more insight you have to share because I feel like you have like a lot of you're like an old soul. Like you're young, but I can tell like you're an old soul and like you just get life. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like I just feel like that's why I like you. I'm like, Rachel, how old are you? 20?
24.
See, to me, you look 24. You look like a baby, but to me, you act like you're like 30. Like like you keep showing up. You work hard. Like most 20-year-olds are just like. They're just trying to figure out life. You know what I mean? And I feel like you definitely have some goals and some balance and things like that. So thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
It was amazing. You guys, right now, if you are listening to this podcast, you want more, you love continuing education, you want to dive deeper into learning how to set up sales funnels and emails and marketing, and it's really business focused for hairstylists with the art and the science of natural beaded rows. There's color, we teach color, we teach extensions, we teach business, but we couldn't do it in 2 days, so we created a 12-month academy. Yeah. If you want more information, you can go to mbr.education and find out more. And we'll see you next week with another smiling face either on my team or I'm going to bring in some more hairstylists, some of my trainers. I think I'll bring Sarah in next week.
I think so.
All right, you guys, we'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.